We are in the week of Hoid. Today was Lag BaOmer, Hoid Shebahoid. The Bnei Yissaschar brings the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. There were 5 Talmidim to Rabbi Ephraim ben Zakkai, and he asked each one of them to go and see which is the derech toiva sheyidbak bo ha'adam. What is the good way that a person should attach himself to? And each one said a different aspect of toiv. Ayin toiv, chove toiv, shochen toiv. Rabbi Eliezer oimer leiv toiv. The essence of toiv is in the leiv toiv. Omalohen, Rabbi Ephraim ben Zakkai said, Roya ani es divrei Rabbi Eliezer ben Aroch mi divreichem shebechlal devorav divreichem. And the Bnei Yissaschar goes into an arich. We're not going to go through all the pratim. The same idea is expressed in the Chassam Sofer also. That Rabbi Ephraim ben Zakkai wanted to know the essence of toiv as it's found in the Torah. And we know the essence of any inyan in the Torah is the first time it's mentioned, and the first time we have toiv in Maaseh Bereishis as describing the oir ki toiv. And each one of these Tanoim was explaining different aspects of why oir is toiv. And Rabbi Eliezer ben Aroch said, Leiv toiv. We know Leiv toiv is begematria 49. There are 49 days to Sefirah Shiurim. There are 32 words in the Torah until the 33rd one, which is toiv. And the Sefirah is divided into 2 parts. There's the first 32 days of the Sefirah, which is the avodah of a person being metar, being makadosh himself. And those 32 days are connected the Lamed Beis Nesivois Chochma that I mentioned in the Shir of Bar Yochai that we sing on Lag BaOmer. And after the 32 days, which are only beremiza, each one expressed as a word in the Torah, bring us close to Toiv. And that was kailal all the different ways of reaching Toiv, because all of Maaseh Bereishis is going into that leiv to creating the pure heart. Then came the 33rd, which is Toiv. Toiv is 17, the 17 days left to Sefirah Shiurim. And the Svarim HaKadoshim tell us that from today onward, there's a new stage in Sefirah Shiurim. Until now, is the work of being Mekadosh and Mitar, and now the Kedusha of Shavuos, the Toiv, Ein Toiv Ela Torah, is not Beremiza. It's not just represented in words, in numbers of the words, but it actually says it out Meferish. It says it out explicitly, Toiv. We are in the days of Toiv, we're in the days of Kabbalah HaTorah, and now from this part of Sefirah and onward, we're actually being yoinik from the splendor of Chag HaShavuos. And there's different in Yonim brought in the Svarim. It's a lashon they bring from the Zohar HaKodesh that in the week of Hoid, it's Tarin Psichin, the gates are still open. Some say to Lag BaOmer, there's different pshatim, and then there's Tarin Steam and the gates closed. We'll explain that, what that means. But we know today was a certain milestone in this journey of Sefirah Shiurim that we're taking. We're trying to grow and steig. We've reached the level of Leiv, and that is given to us over in the Hilul of Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. Libi uvesari yerananu. Libi is leiv. Besari is the Rishatevis Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. That when we purify our hearts and we reach the madrega of leiv, we're ready to absorb the toiv of Torah. The Chassam Sofer we know brings. Many have the minhag to learn Masechta Shavuos. There are 49 daf in Masechta Shavuos, and through the days of Sefirah Shiurim to get to Shavuos, to finish the Masechta till Shavuos, and on the 33rd daf of Masechta Shavuos, there is the mem of Rab Shimon Oime Mochko Alai b'Marava. Mochme, they had a simcha for me b'Marava in Eretz Yisrael. We know that Lag BaOmer is a special yontiv in Eretz Yisrael, even more than it is in Chutz La'aretz, and that is nirmaz in that day, in that daf. We know also in Daf Laman Gimel and Masechta Shabbos is the story told of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai when he was he was being chased by the Romans and he hid in the Ma'ora, and that's who was Mechaber, he revealed the Sisrei Torah, and that memory of Rabbi Shimon is the 33rd time that Rabbi Shimon is mentioned in Shas. If you look in Parshas Mitzayre, in Perek Tesvav, from the Psukim that begin with V'chiyitar Hazov Mizoyvoy, and the Psukim continue V'sofa Lo Shivas Yamim L'Torah, and the Zohar HaKodesh says these 3 Psukim are 49 words, and they're merames on the inyan of Sefirah Shiurim. Just like a Zov counts 7 days to be metar himself from his tumah, so too we count the 7 weeks. And the 33rd word in that list of sukkim is moyed, a yontiv, which the Ardina says teaches us as merames touch this heilige yontiv, the hilula, the Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, the great simcha of the yahrzeit of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, which we know was the Sefirah of Hoid Shebahoid. Now, we need to understand a little bit this musig. There are many who have the minig that the whole week of Hoid, they don't even say Tachnan, it's a special yontiv. Svarim say the greatest gilui of Sefirah Shiurim is in this week, especially Lag BaOmer, which is the Oisius Gal Einai Va'abita Niflois, to be Megala, the Gilui of the Hester, the secrets of the Torah and the secrets of all of us, which come Lidei revelation during these days, and specifically Bereish Gali, we reach our Geula, as the Targum says, the Lashon Bereish Gali, and the Svarim say Bereish is also the Rosh Hashanah Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. And this is the week of Hoid, and we know the Svarim teach us Hoid has 3 different meanings. First of all, the simple taich of Hoid is beauty, splendor, Hoid v'hodor, hadara hoida v'ziva. Hoid also has a meaning of thanks, lahoidoist, to say toida, mizmar l'soida, to thank is also a shayrish of hoida. And another shayrish of Hoid is the shayrish of being moida, of admitting, of humbling oneself, not being kofer, not denying, but rather admitting his shortcomings and accepting them. And as we shall see, all 3 are tluyim, they're intertwined, one is dependent one on the other, that one can only reach hoidah, one can only reach gratitude and being thankful if he has the first element of hoidah, being able to admit. And when one becomes thankful, he becomes a person of splendor, a person of beauty, who shines from him the beauty, the magnificence of Hoid. Now, we all know we have a neshama. We don't get to see our neshamas. If we could see our neshamas, we would be different people. The Rebbe Rabbanim once said, if we could see our neshamas 1 hour after learning, if we would learn for an hour, we'd be able to see how our neshama has changed, has grown from 1 hour of limud HaTorah. Says we would have no bechira. We would be so overcome by what Torah can do to our neshamas, we would never be able to do an Aveira again. That's why we can never see our neshamas, because if we could see it, we would lose our bechira. But there are some times we can see little remazim, hints of our neshama. Hoid, Reb Tzaddik in the Sefer Resisei Loila, is mazbeh. Hoid is not just splendor, but it's observable splendor. It's a Hoid that one can see, an aura, a light that one can detect that there is an Or Pnimi. And Reb Tzaddik is marich. He says, Be'emes, we as Yidden are really connected to the Or Pnimi, to the inner light. And we don't have to see the outside light, the Gili of the Or HaChitzoin. But the Rebbeinu Shalom wanted that from that Or HaPnimi, from the great and endless light that we have inside of us, some of it should show and some of it should break through the Golas. Some of it should break through the Chumrias and the Gashmis. We should be able to detect that there's Chiyas there, that there's light there. Where we see light, you look at an orb of light, you know that there's an energy source there. There must be something inside, or else it wouldn't be shining. And the purpose is, Dr. Reb Tzaddik, that even the Chitzonim should be able to see that there is Kedusha in the world. The Goyim should be able to see there's Kedusha in the world. They will have fear when they will be able to see the inner light that's inside and hidden, that's Nelam, shining forth with the Gilui of Midas HaHoid. So Hoid is an expression, it's a revelation, a small revelation of what's doing inside. We know we have a neshama, we know we have Kedusha inside, we're not always in touch with it. But in the time of Hoid, we can see and we can sense and we can grasp, and there's an observable light that emanates from the Or HaPnimi and shines forth outside. Now sometimes we lose this Hoid. Sometimes we don't shine the way we should. You can't tell on us the beauty and the inner light of a Yid. And this comes from a chesaron, from a heder, from a lack of Kedusha. When Rashi in Parshas Vayetze tells us, Yitzias Tzadik min ha'ir, when Yaakov Avinu left the city, Yitzias tzadik min ha'ir oiser roisham, pona hoida, pona ziva, pona hadara. When the tzaddik leaves a makom, he takes with it the hoid, and the shine is missing. And the midah of tzaddik, we know, represents our prisha from Inyone of Olam Hazeh. Yosef HaTzaddik was called Tzaddik Yesod Olam. And when we live in a world of moral depravity, we live in a world where there's so much tumah and so much shmutz, and so the opposite of the midah of tzaddik, and that has an effect on us, and we catch some of the sickness that's going around in the world, and we lose that shine, that hoid from our countenance. Yitzias tzaddik, the midah of tzaddik, leaves us somewhat, and it's pana hoida, and we're lacking in that magnificent shine of our Or HaPnimi shining out l'chutz. And in the entire week of Midas HaHoid is a matana. The Rebbeinu Shalom tells us, we have a koyach hatfilo. Reb Shimon Bar Yochai is the word Shimon is Shmiya, Shoma Hashem, was the name Shimon was given in the Torah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu hears our tefillas, and especially our tefillas, to ask to return to us the midah of tzaddik, to fix the pagam that maybe we somehow caused, that we should take away from ourselves that shine of hoid. And we ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashiva li sesoin yishecha, HaKadosh Baruch Hu should give it back to us. And these days are especially mesugel to bring forth the gal einai va'abita niflois. There's so much niflois within us. Reb Shimon Bar Yochai was the one who was Megala Sisrei Torah. He took every ois in the Torah and said, it's not just what you see, there's so much more, there's so much depth, this pirish, this remesh, this drush, this soid, this tilim shal halaches. Rabbi Akiva was able to take every ois and take the crowns and teach endless depth. We know Yisrael, the Rosh Tevis, Yesh Shichim Ribi Oisius LeTorah. Every neshama is another ois in the Sefer Torah. If Reb Shimon Bar Yochai was able to darshan endless side and be megala secrets that are infinite secrets on every ois in the Torah, whose secrets are they? Every ois represents another neshama. Every ois, every neshama is endless. This tilim shel halachas. That in every koitz and every tag and every single inyan that is within our neshamas that we don't get to see. Gal einai v'abito in the week of Oid. Some of this can become revealed. We know by tzaddikim, the musig, the hoid, the shine of kedusha, you're able to detect it, you're able to see it. Moshe Rabbeinu, koran oir ponov, and the shine was so intense that Vayiru Migeshes Elav, they were afraid to approach him. Vayitan al Ponov Mazve, he had to cover his face with a mask because the light was so intense. There's a story told about the Chassam Sofer. One of the Chassam Sofer's daughters-in-law came for the first time to her father-in-law's Seder. And the sisters-in-law told her, you have to be careful by the Seder, you mustn't look at the Chassam Sofer, because the light that comes from his face during the Seder is so brilliant that you can become blinded. And she's like, what are you talking about? How somebody can shine? That doesn't make any sense. I never heard of such a thing. And she writes that during the Seder, I tried once to look at the Chassam Sofer, and I felt as if knives were stabbing into my eyes. And I tried again and again. I couldn't look at him until I realized that it's taka true, that he's shining with a light and with a glow. Emes is brought in the Pinkas HaKol of Preshborg, where they kept the records, the history of the city, that after the tefillah in the mikveh on Erev Yom Kippur, the Chassam Sofer, the four of his Talmidim would carry him home on a chair. That's how they would bring him home from the mikveh. And one of them writes that sometimes the one who was in the front would want to turn around to look at him. He says it was impossible to look at his face. He says the light was shining, the hoid v'hoda, the hoda v'ziva was so intense you couldn't look at him. The Avnei Nezer writes about his shver, about the Kotzker Rebbe. He said that by the Seder, he looked greater than a Saraf. And he says, Ani yochel leheyed, that there were years that in the second half of the Seder, there were sparks coming out of his face. You couldn't look at him. This was the countenance, the hoid of tzaddikim, when the neshama is misparetz, it's meir lochutz. I remember as a young boy, I must have maybe 13 or 14, I had the schia, wanted to go to the Satmar Rebbe, Zechus Young in Elaine. It was already in the years when he wasn't well. And it was a long line. I was a little boy. I wasn't able to get in. And it was just about after davening time, and I decided to climb over one of the gates. There was a stone wall, and I fell right into a garden. And he was sitting there by a huge open window, and his talis and film, there was nobody in the room, there was no gabbai, no one there. And he was concentrating very intensely on his davening, and he was just looking at him. I was right here, just looking at him and looking at him. His face was shining. I could not believe what you were able to see. The lichtigkeit, the glow, the purity that was shining from the face of this tzaddik Yesod Olam. It's known that in the 1930s when he went to Yerushalayim, one of the greatest Mekubalim, Reb Chaim Shala Kohen Dwecker, was the oldest from the Ziknei Mekubalim and the Svardish Mekubalim. Satmar went to him for a bracha. He asked him to give him a bracha back, and he said, he'll be an old Rebbe, he'll always have the face of a young child. And that's how it was. People remember, you were able to see a shine, you were able to see a light. That's the hoy, that's the karnei hoy that tzaddikim have, that Moshe Rabbeinu had. Now, where does that come from? And how do we tap into such a level of kedusha? Now, as we spoke last week, and we talked about Netzach, we explained that just like this chesed and gvura, chesed represents his spashtus, going out, and gvura is his skaftus, his restraint, is coming back in. And we explained that Netzach and Hoid correspond to Chesed and Gvura. Meaning, Chesed is the idea, is the atzmius, is the potential, is the koyach. And Netzach is the expression, the physical manifestation of Chesed. So too in Gvura. Gvura, which means strength and restraint and withholding, that power in the Bria that gives us the ability to do battle with the Yetzer Hara, to overcome the temptation of the world. That's the idea. Gvura is Yitzhak, that's the atzmius, the theory of Gvura. But the physical expression in the Olam HaHasiyah is in the Midah of Hoid. And it's kedai to see a little bit the words of Reb Tzaddik in the Sefer Takonos Hashavim. He writes in Yonim Amukim Ma'oid, and we'll try to understand it to the best of our abilities, just maybe have a little bit of an achizah. Midas HaHoid, hispashtus midas HaGvura. Midas Zu HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Yolui Umu'uyim, makes us fear HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Midas HaHoid, Hagvura is mida atzmius, v'ahoid in yonoi ziv ha-mispashet min ha-atzmius, v'hu mispashet mitzad midas hagvura shehi ha-mitzamtzemes kvoid ha-melech shelo yeh behispashtus kemidas ha-chesed, v'al yedei zeh misgale ha-hoid v'haziv levad. What is he saying here? In the Giluyim of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's a Giluy of Chesed, which is his Spashtus, which is Hashpah, which is everything that's happening in the world. When there is such a Ribuy of Hashpah, we cannot always see the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu is B'Gvura, Mitzamtzim, the Midas HaGvura, Mitzamtzim, the Hashpah, and it becomes concentrated, the Giluy of that becomes recognizable, and we see that as the Hoid in the Bria. When there's an expression of Gevura, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is misgabah, being miskaves and concentrating the Hashpah, what happens is that is when we can detect Eloikus. There are times when we can see the Rebbeinu Shalom in the world. That's the expression of Hoid and Ziv. And through the hisoireris of Midas HaHoid, mispashetes Midas HaBusho, shehu gam kein onof hayir. Explains another nakuda. What is our reaction to Hoid? When we see the splendor of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we feel ashamed. We see the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we are miskavitz within ourselves. We restrain within ourselves because we are frightened. And as we said, this is an expression of Gvura, which is Yiro, and Bush has a connection to Yiro. The union of Yira is Lamantia Yirosei al Penechem. That's the union of Bush. Then he's Masber. Aaron HaKoyin, who's the Midah of Hoid, Netzach v'Hoid is Moshe and Aaron. Aaron was Oyev Shalom v'Loidev Shalom. He would go over to people with such ahava, with such love, that they were ashamed to be in a fight. He brought out such a ribah, such a clarity of kedusha, that he was ma'ir in a person, the shame, a person felt distanced. He didn't want to be bad, you wanted to be good. There are expressions of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's splendor
splendor and glory in the Bria that make us ashamed to do Averis. We're miskavitz within ourselves, and we want to do His Ratzon. And from that, we are zoiche to the countenance, to the ziv and the hoid, because we remove the busha, is like we remove our own ziv. We take away our own shine, right? When somebody is malbim pnei chavera berabim, somebody goes white when he's ashamed, and then he could be mekabel, the hoid of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But there's a very deep idea that he's masbim. Aaron HaKoyen. How did Aaron HaKoyen, who's the Midah of Hoyd, the Midah of Avodah, the Midah of Beis HaMikdash, as it says in the Gemara Masech the Brachas, Ve'ahoyd zu Beis HaMikdash. How did Aaron HaKoyen get the schus to be the Avodah, to be the Kohen Gadol? He was zoiche to Madrege zu because he was ashamed of what he did with the Maisa Egel. Lo ma'ata boish lekach nivcharto. And although it might have appeared that his asik in the Aveira of the Egel would be some that would be marchik him, that would take him away from having the schus to do the avodah, as normally we know a kohen who served avodah zarah is osir even to do the avodah. We find punkt fakert eitzel aharon hoye lehepech. This richuk, this distance that he felt unworthy, that he was moide, that he admitted and he understood that he less let me garmei klum. He understood how small we have to feel in the presence of the intensity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light. This richuk actually became the kiruv. This was the hoid that Aaron HaKoyen was zoiche to through being miskavitz, through being restraining his own anoichias and understanding that we're nothing in the face of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And from that he gains the countenance and the splendor of the midas hahoid. Hoid, Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, represents what's inside us, what's deeply, deeply embedded inside us. The more we focus inward, the more we don't have to show out, the more we want to be mechasa, the more we are not revealing ourselves, the more we're covering, the more we don't talk about ourselves, the more anivus we have, the more busha we have, the more we shine. There's a story told about the Shagas Aryeh. He was riding on his in a wagon, and they were attacked by bandits. And they were surrounded by these ganovim, and the Shagas Aryeh stuck his head out, and he was wearing his tefillin, he uncovered his tefillin shorosh, and they ran away. So the Balagol, the wagon driver, said, well, he says, yeah, it says in the Pasuk, V'ro kalamor, it's kishem Hashem nikra alecha v'yoru mimeko, and Chazal say, Elu tefillin sheberosh. But the Ummah Salam see the tefillin sheberosh, they'll all run away from you. So the Balagol says, Reb, I'm also wearing tefillin. Why weren't they afraid of my tefillin? He says, it doesn't say Elu tefillin sha'al harosh. It says Elu tefillin shebirosh. The tefillin have to be in your head. It's not just that it's sticking on the outside. If a person takes it into himself, he concentrates, he's miskavitz, he focuses inward, pnimius, he will shine with the hoid that will throw a yira and a pachad on all the chitzonim. Now the Ari HaKodesh teaches us, there's a word that's used to describe golus. That word is dovo. Kol hayoim dovo. Al zeh hayot dove libeinu, alayla choshchu eineinu. Kol hayoim dovo. Dovo is the opposite letters of hoid. Backwards hoid is dovo. Kol hayoim, we know that hoid is the 5th week, the 5th midah of the 7 midas. And the elef hachamishi is that millennium that we were in Golus from beginning to end. The Elef Hashishi we're hoping to be redeemed before it ends. The Elef Hachamishi was total Golus from beginning to end. Kol hayoim dova. All of the time it was dova. It was sickness. And this sickness comes from indulgence. When a person doesn't hold himself back. When a person doesn't restrain himself. Eliktin gashmias, eliktin taiva, eliktin oilam hazeh, he becomes dova. But Reb Tzaddik teaches us that from this dova, from this richuk, comes the kiruv. There's interesting, we find the word dova, the Torah uses it to describe tumas nido, which is what separates isha mibayla, v'hadova benidoso, timei nidas dvoiso titmo. The richuk of the tumah of that tumah is only for a purpose to bring to Kiruv, to bring to a greater Hiskarvus. If we understand that this Richuk, this Dova, this Alzaya Dova Libenu, this Golus, the fact that we feel far from the Rebbeinu Shalom, that we're ashamed of our Maisim, this is the inyan of Zdoinus Nas Lehen Kezochius. There's going to come a time, he says, we're going to see all this distance, all that we felt far from the Rebbeinu Shalom is Adarabba va'Adarabba. This will be the source of the closeness. This is going to bring an ahava. This dava will be turned over. This dava will be nehepach into hoid, because we feel unworthy, because we feel so far from Hashem. Dafkebi, because of that, we're going to feel the closeness of an asata mohoid cha'olov. And this was the inyan of Beis Hamikdash. Beis Hamikdash was an expression of the Nahoru Elof Kol HaGoyim, where everybody was able to see the kedusha, everybody able to see the revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's beauty in this world. V'shom navodcha b'yiro. That was yira, was the hiskafsus. That's Aaron HaKoyin, that's Yitzchak, which is Midas HaGvura, is Avoida, who was the korban in the Akedas Yitzchak. It's all because it was a mokum of Pnimius, as the Maral explains, the name Aharon. Aleph, Hey, Reish, Nun. The letters Hey, Reish, Nun are all Oisios Pnimius. In the singular, Oisios, the singular digits of 1 till 10, Hey is at the center. In the tens, 50 is at the center. In the hundreds, the Reish is at the center. And all these were connected to the Aleph, to the Alufei Shel Olam, from the Pnimius, from Aharon's quiet, Vayidoim Aharon, from holding himself and feeling, Lama Ataboish, feeling distance, he was able to connect himself to the Aleph and create a Beis Hamikdash that everybody was able to be makir, everybody was able to see the hoid, everybody was able to see the beauty and the splendor, and that light shines collectively on all of us, on all of Klal Yisrael. V'ro kol ha'meoras ki shem Hashem nikra lecha v'yom HaKadosh Baruch Hu created us as a nation with a neshama that can shine out, and people in the world know and recognize that. I was once this past summer, went out in the summer, went to family, we took a trip to Niagara Falls, and we parked. There was a big parking lot, and I get out of the parking lot, and I hear in the distance, see, there's a group of people, and they're singing what's clearly a Yiddish niggin. They're singing da 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 dam. I think it's a Kalbach niggin, and I'm wondering what's going on. So maybe there's some Yiddish college kids. I don't know. I want to go say Shalom Aleichem. And I'm getting close, I see they're banging with tambourines and they're swaying back and forth and they're singing this niggin. And I get close, I see they're wearing crosses and slomim, and apparently it was some South American, or I think maybe Italian Christian group. And they were making a trip and they're touring, and I was very puzzled. Why are you singing Yiddish songs? Well, and they come over to me and I said, what's going on? He says, yes, this is Jewish music. We put our words to it. And they were telling me that they have other songs. They know many. They like the Jewish music very much, and they're so happy for the Jewish people. And there's this chief galach with a big Salem hanging, and he gives me a big hug, and he tells me he wishes me well, and they're all taking pictures. And he says to me, he says, this is the story of the world. Says the Jews write the music. We make different words, we put different words, but we understand that the music, the niggin, has to come from you. They understand that there's an oil coming out of us. Actually, the real reason I'm telling this story is because they took so many pictures, and they must be floating around South America, a lot of pictures of me and this galach hugging. Figured I better go public before the pictures turn up on their own. But it was recognized, the hoid of Klal Yisrael is recognized in the world. Now, the greatest restraint, the greatest hiskafzus, is the gvura of anivus. Where did the karnei hoid of Moshe Rabbeinu come from? The Chaim HaKadosh brings the Shloah HaKadosh. They bring that when Moshe Rabbeinu had to write the word in the Torah that he was onov, that he was an onav. He couldn't bring himself to write that word. I'm an onav. So he just left out the yud. He couldn't write the whole word. And that little yud that was still left on the tip of the pen, he rubbed it on himself, and from there shined the karnei hoid. The hoid comes Because the greatest hiskafzus is the restraint of the anoichias, of the ego. We all want ourselves, and every chelik of anoichias is what's holding us back. This is what holds us back from being proper moedim. Why we can't thank? Why is it so difficult for someone to say thank you, for someone to be grateful? Because we have the anoichias. If I have to thank you, I'm humbling myself, and I'm not happy to humble myself. Aaron mahu ki salino. Aaron what made himself to Mao, made himself to nothing. That was the perfect Midas Ahoid. Moshe Rabbeinu, even in the Midah of Anibis itself, he had to take out the you. That's a Hoid Shabahoid, as it says, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was the Shoyesh Neshama of Moshe Rabbeinu. When one is miskaved to such an extent, what is the greatest expression of thanks? Sometimes you say something, I don't even have the words to express my thanks, to express my gratitude. When we're so overwhelmed, we realize someone has been mative to us, someone has been good to us, to the extent that I really feel I'm nothing. Everything I got was from him, or everything I got is from the Rebbeinu Shalom. And then I say, Mo Oshiv Lashem, Kol Tag. How do I begin to talk? Kol Tag Muloi Oloi. Everything you give, everything I have is owed to you, is from you, and I am be'emes, betachlis, nothing at all. When a person reaches that madrega, that separation between him and the Rebbeinu Shalom, which is the anoichius, that's when he shines with the karnei hoid, and that's why when he says ma'oshiv l'Hashem, he can continue to say hoidu l'Hashem ki toiv ki li'olam chazdoi. There's a Gemara that says, had there not come a malach and hit Nebuchadnezzar on his mouth, bo malach v'sotrei al piv, he would have said, Sotshiros v'sishbochos v'hayu meganim, the tefillah, the tehillim of David ben Yishai. Was Nebuchadnezzar, the apostles was saying, Shiras Asoi Kamerabri, was saying, all psukim in Daniel, he was singing praises to Hashem. And the Gemara says, had a malach not come along and smacked him on the mouth, he would have sang such praises that they would have shamed David HaMelech's tehillim. Now, how do we understand this? How can we understand such a thing? David HaMelech's tehillim, we know the Rizal tells us that David HaMelech wrote Beruach HaKodesh for any single matzav or situation a person ever finds himself. Atzof kol adoros. If something's bothering somebody, if someone is happy about something, he wants to express himself in tehillim, he'll open a tehillim, and David HaMelech Beruach HaKodesh was mechaven to what I or you or he needs at that very moment. And every word, every letter is oizgalten al pisoid and sisrei Torah with an amkus neiro that never ends. And the Nebuchadnezzar, Harosha, who turned into a chaya, who destroyed the Beis Hamikdash, would be able to say such shiras v'sishboches that there will be megana, they would shame the tefillas of David. How do we understand such a Gemara? I heard once a moire de Gewort, I saw it in the Sefer, Shem and Roish from the Wiener Rav, das eingesund and stark. He said a tremendous machshava, gave a moshel. So you have in a king's palace, there is somebody, a minister, who sings praises to the king. And he can bring out a certain level of nachas ruach to the king. What if you have a simple soldier, a peasant, who's fighting the battles, and he gets captured by the enemy? And then they bring him out in front of the media, they want him to make statements against his melech. And he gets up there, instead of saying what they're forcing him to say, he gets up and he starts to praise his melech. Such praise, such shir v'shevach, is at an extraordinary madrega, tremendous level. The Belzerov told the Maisa, the Baal Shem Tov once before Nila was waiting and waiting to begin Nila. And he was waiting close to an hour. And finally he began Nila. He said, what were you waiting for? He said there was a Yid, a Rosh, who was over every Aveira in the Torah. And he lived in a place, was in a different time zone. And before Nili had an Isairish l'tshuva, and I was waiting for his tshuva, and his tshuva made such a rash, made such a tumult in Shamayim, that through his tshuva, all of the tshuva of Klal Yisrael was able to enter into the Hecher HaHeicholos. And the Bel Zeruv said, what was the tshuva that Yid said? He said, Oi, Rebbeinu Shalom, is du a Yid of the Welt, was daf hazoi viel tshuvatin v'yich. He gave a krecht. He said, is there anybody in the world who needs to do tshuva as much as I do? And that tshuva was at such a great level that it was greater than all the tshuva that was being done on that Yom Kippur. We see that when someone is in the depths, if someone is meruchik, if someone is in despair, if someone knows he's far from the Rebbeinu Shalom, and from that matzav he sings praise to the Rebbeinu Shalom, Nebuchadnezzar, being who he was, and the station of life where he was, if he gets up and he says, Osoi kamerabrevi, how great and manifold are your works and your wonders, Rabbeinu Shalom, he could bring a nachas ruach and a shebach to the Rabbeinu Shalom even greater than the Tehillim of David ben Yishai. And that is what we can do in our door. We hear about Madregas, talk about some Seif whose face was shining by something, but where do we have a shaykhis? What could we do? How could we shine with Hoyd? The answer is dafke. Because we live in such a world, because we live in such surroundings, because we are ikbas of the Mashiach, because we are such a weak door. If we humble ourselves, we are moidel mishabeach. We are moidel misvada to the Rabbeinu Shalom. Dafke from our weak matzav, we can shine with such a hoid sheba hoid of sham kanisa hoid chavahadorecha.
We know that for most people, kavod is a major weakness. If you're dealing with somebody and the person doesn't stop talking about himself or telling you about all his accomplishments and bringing out, looking for kavod, you feel less threatened by that person because you see he's a weakness. You see he needs you. You see he's needy. It's dafka the person, the strongest person in the world is the person who doesn't need kavod. Such a person you have to be terrified. He's a gibor. He doesn't need anything. He's a true ben chayrin. He's a true free man. And he can do whatever he wants, and he can even thank. He can thank profusely. He can thank at a level of ma'ashiv l'Hashem. Kol tagma, he doesn't have anything to be afraid of because he has the greatest gibor gvura. So hoid. V'arein mahu ki salinu olav, the busha, the hiskaftzes, the understanding, the distance, and the richuk, the hester b'toich hester. This is what brings out the hoid and the hodder. This can make us shine, even in a time where we're living, where everything is so hidden and so not clear, and such a mechitza of gashmias. There's an idea brought in the Svarim that hoid is also the inyan of what we are moisif, what we add on ourselves. We know Netzach v'hoid is Moshe and Haran. Moshe is Torah she'biksav, Haran is Torah she'bal peh. Torah she'bal peh is the idea of what Yidden, rather weren't moisif because everything comes from Hashem, but we revealed a chelik in Torah that wasn't written. It was a hoisafa, it was what we gave of ourselves. And that's what's called midas hahoid. The ability, we once discussed this in one of the previous shiurim, the ability to be thankful. It says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's a message HaKadosh Baruch Hu created us just that we should thank Him. So the Rebbe Shalom needs our applause. He needs to create a human race, so we should thank Him for His chasadim. Now the Bir Adover is, since to be thankful demands one to be humble, to be moide, and to only when one humbles himself can he express thanks. And by the Rebbeinu Shalom, it's not shaykh to be moide to anybody because the Rebbeinu Shalom is the balabas of everything. So this ability to be moide, to thank, is really the human addition to Briyas Ha'olam. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created a world because in Shemayim it was lacking this avodah of hoidah. We, by being created with the ability to humble ourselves, to be moide, and so to thank, we add into the Bria a Torah Shebal Peh, in addition to the Torah, in addition to existence. This is the hoidah. And dafki in a world where everything centers on going outward, a world where people are crazy enough to expose everything and to focus on being as explicit and as public as possible, to have no restraints. What happens to such a world? It becomes dehumanized. You lose the hoid, and one becomes reduced to the level of a behemoth. Klal Yisrael, a nation of Baishanim, we know to be anav, we know to be able to hold ourselves back, to restrain. We're not megala, we don't reveal. We go more pneumius and more pneumius into ourselves. We change from a behemoth into an Adam. We bring out the hoid of Adam. And especially these days, the days of Lag BaOmer, Adam u'behemoth Toshia Hashem, which is Begemati Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, gives us the chance, the ability to fix that, to fix maybe that weakness that we always need to come forth, we always need to show and always need to express ourselves
instead of focusing inwards and making ourselves more and more pnimiyazdik. And that's why another inyan of hoid, of adding, is the inyan of hoisofas gedorim. We add gedorim, we add fences, we add restraints around the Torah, more hoisofas and more hoisofas to help us. What are we doing? Each time we build a gate around ourselves, we're making ourselves more pnimi, more inner focus, because there's another wall around me, and we're focusing inward. When we focus inward, we bring out the hoid, we bring out the shine of hoidcha v'hadorecha. The Gemara tells us in Masechta Shabbos how, Taken Daf Lamed Gimel, as we mentioned, how Reb Shimon bar Yochai came to run away from the Romans. He was sitting with Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, and Reb Shimon, and Rabbi Yehuda said, "Kamanoim maseyim shel umazu." Look how thankful, how beautiful are the actions of the Romans. They built marketplaces, they built bridges, they built bathhouses. Then Reb Shimon bar Yochai said, whatever they did, kol ma shetiknu lo tiknu elo l'tzorech atzmon. They did it all for themselves. They made shvokim, they made marketplaces, l'hoishuv behem zoynos. They made bathhouses, la'adad behem atzmon, to pleasure themselves. Gishorim, they made bridges, litel mehen meches, to take taxes. And someone informed Reb Shimon bar Yochai about how he spoke, and he had to run away, and the Romans issued a gezerah to take his life. I heard once that the Machloikis, Reb Shimon and Reb Yehuda, they were going l'shitosam. In Masechta Shabbos, in Masechta Ksubas, other places, we have a Machloikis, Reb Shimon and Reb Yehuda, about a dover she'ena miskaven. If someone does a malacha on Shabbos and he's not mechaven, he does the action without the kavana. Reb Yehuda holds chayiv, Reb Shimon holds potter, because Reb Yehuda says you look at the action. And even if the kavana wasn't there, the action is considered an action, and it's considered a malacha on Shabbos. Reb Shimon says if someone does davar she'ena miskaven, he's dragging something, and through that he makes a charitz. A davar she'ena miskaven is potter, because without the kavana, the ma'aseh is not considered that action. And Reb Yehuda, who praised the Romans and said, look, they did such beautiful things. They built bridges and marketplaces and bathhouses, even though their kavana wasn't good. But the fact is, they did the ma'aseh. Reb Shimon, who holds davar she'ena miskaven, is mutter. He says an action without a kavana, their kavana was l'ra. You have to look at their machshava. The world of machshava is the world of din. Mitchila olav machshava livrois b'midas hadin. The Eibishter saw the world couldn't be miskayim. He was mishatef imo midas harachimim. He joined it with midas harachimim. As Fasemes says masber, there wasn't a change. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world in machshava, in thought. It's still b'midas hadin. In ma'aseh there's midas harachim, which he says that's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give rachmim. He'll extend rachmanis for our actions, but our ritzoinus and our thoughts, HaKadosh Baruch Hu demands din. A person has to want to be a tzaddik. He has to want to be the best. Because for that we're Tavei Midas Hadin. If when it comes Lamaisa he doesn't have the strength of spirit to live according to his Ritzoinus, the Rebbeinu Shalom can give Rachman. But on the Machshava is perfection. That's why La'asid Lovay, there'll be a world of Machshava. The Machloik is Beishamai and Beisil. Today we paskin like Beisil. La'asid Lovay we're paskin like Beishamai. Normally the Machloik is Beishamai Beisil. You see there's a pattern that Beishamai always looks at the Machshava and Beisil at the Mais. L'mashal by Shlichus Yad. B'Shamai, somebody thinks he has a machshava to be shaleach yad, he already is considered his chayav ba'insin. Beis Hillel says at yishlach bayad, until he does it b'poil. There's many examples of this, because Beis Shammai use midas hadin, who demands perfection, is the world of machshava, which is the world of la'asid lavoi, and Beis Hillel, which represents this world, the world of rachmah. Reb Shimon bar Yochai is shayach to the world of din. Harba also Reb Shimon bar Yochai v'lo also biyadam, the Gemara tells us. There was a machloikis. Rabbi Yishmael held v'asafta diganecha. A person could live a life and earn a panos. Reb Shimon bar Yochai said, Torasa yumnasa, you do only pure Torah. And Harba tried to do with that din that Reb Shimon bar Yochai was today v'lo also biyadam. Reb Shimon bar Yochai came out of the Ma'ora, and whoever he saw, he burnt up. Because that was a level of perfection. A level of perfection that's shaykh to ilam ha'machshav, which is shaykh really to Yemais HaMashiach, but it's there. And we all have it within us. That's the Hoid Shebahoid, the Hester B'toich Hester. There are different parts of us, and there are parts of how we act and how we think, but at the very depth and at the very core of every one of us, there's a piece of Mashiach. There's the essence of din, of pure emes mamish, that's hidden, that's the Chelek HaTomen that Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, who says through the Gilui of his Torah, will bring Mashiach, because he will reveal that shirish of din, that shirish of perfection that's within us. And even if we can't always see it, but if we taka understand, if we harbor to break our covenant, we harbor to understand, to have a busha, and to feel that our Averis create a richik between us and the Rebbeinu Shalom, that Chelek HaTomen that's within us will shine forth, and will recognize the Hoid, will recognize the Hoid Shebahoid, the Or that shines on each and every one of us. And that's why it's brought in the Sefirah Makdoshim that when they light the Hadloka, there were fires lit all over Eretz Yisrael and Meron. In many places, people lit fires, and at the moment that those fires are lit, every year, thousands of neshamas become ignited when the fires are lit. L'zeichen nishmas Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. Ki ner Hashem nishmas Adam. Every neshama is a ner, is a flame. And on Lag Ba'oyim it goes into a blaze. It becomes an eish. Like Aaron HaKohen, it says, Ba'alas Saneres Bein Arbaim, when Aaron HaKohen lit the menorah, he lifted up all the neshamas of Klal Yisrael, even till Bein Arbaim, even to the Zman of Ikvus of the Mashiach. That was the midah of Hoy, to lift us up, to show there's more to us than we think there is. There's a Shishim Ribi Oisis L'Toyr. Every one of us has a Chelek HaSoid, a Chelek HaTomen, an endless, infinite beauty, an infinite Hoy. And that can be brought out when a person recognizes and understands understands how much we owe the Rebbeinu Shalom, how much Hoidah, how much Ma'ashiv L'Hashem Kol Tag Maloi Aloi. Then we can cry at Hoidah L'Hashem Ki Tov. It's interesting. The Koran Oir Ponov that we find by Moshe Rabbeinu is called Karnei Hoid. On the Mizbeach there were 4 kronos. The kronos are the corners. They're like an extension of the Mizbeach. The Mizbeach represents a person being mevatel himself, humbling himself. The Medrash says the Mizbeach is a mashal to nafshoy shel adam. A person brought a carbon, and he said vidui. He was moide v'oiz of Yeruchim. And he brought his carbon. And on those kronos, that was where you made the zrikas hadam. That was where you saw the effect, the shine of his hachno. And there were 4 kronos, 4 mekoimes of hoidah. We know Yehuda, we're called Yehudim because we are Balei Hoidah, was the 4th child of Leah. Hapam Oides Hashem. And Yehuda has the Shem Havaya, and in the middle the Ois Dalid. Dalid Tzrichin Lahoides. There are 4 who have to bring a carbon toida. There are 4 Hoidus, you say 4 Hoidus in Hallel. The idea of the Dalid Karnos represent the 4 corners of the world. All of physical existence, when we humble that, and we are machniya that before the Rebbeinu Shalom, then we can sing with a hoid. There's a famous word from the Apter Rov, V'chol karnei rishoyim agadeya, troimamno karnois tzadik. What is karnei rishoyim? Karnei, the horns of the word rishoyim. The 2 words, the 2 letters at the end of rishoyim are a reish and a mem. That's rom, that's gaiver. That's Begematria Amalek. Amalek is Begematria Rom. Amalek has to be destroyed before the revelation of Mashiach. Hiyod al Keis Ka Muhammad Hashem Ba'amalek Midor Dor. When we bring down that Anoichius, that Rom, that Gaiva, the Chol Karnei Rishoyim Agadeya, Troimamno Karnois Tzadik. What are the Karnois of Tzadik? The letters Kate, the letters of Mashiach. And we say in Hallel, Keil Hashem v'yor lonu isru chag ba'avoisim ad karnois hamizbech. The Mordik b'nei Yisachar and Hashanah Rabbah and his Mazber, that we know there are the oisius menatzpach. These are the 5 oisius that are enda oisius, that are tzimtzum, that end off a word, that are the yisoid, the makor of the dinim. Of 5 dinim come from these oisius, and they together begematria Reish Pei, 280 dinim, and these are divided into 5 sections of Nun Vav of 56. There are 5 news in the pasuk. V'noyim Hashem Elokeinu, V'noyim Hashem Elokeinu, Aleinu Masdeinu Koinu, Aleinu Masdeinu Koinu. We have 5 news, and those 5 times Nun Vav together equal Reish Pei. But if you add 1 to each one of them, and turn it into Nun Zayin, which is Keil Hashem, which is the Shem of Chesed, it becomes, instead of Par, instead of Reish Pei, it becomes Poro, which is Mitaher Tameim, which brings us to Tahara. Keil Hashem, the Oisi is Keil Havaya. Vayoer Lonu, bring light to Nu, Lenu, Vayoer Lonu to the 56, Isru Chag Ba'avoisim At Karnois HaMizbeach, to bring out the oil, to bring out the shine and the light of the Hoy that there is on the Karnei Hoy, the Karnes HaMizbech. And from there we go and we continue and we say, Keili Ato V'oideko Elokai V'aroi Memeka Hoidu L'Hashem Ki Toiv Ki Li'olam Chazdoi. And the 4 Hoidus in the name of Yehuda. Yehuda, you have the Shem Havaya, that's 26, and the Dalit, which is the 4 times Hoidu, and in the Hal HaGadol, Hoidu L'Hashem Ki Toiv Ki Li'olam Chazdoi, we have 26 Ki Li'olam Chazdoi. So you have the 26 of the Shem Havaya, and the Dalit of the 4 Hoidus together, that's 30. Hoid Shebahoid, twice Hoid is 30. Each Hoid is Yud K, is a Shem of the beginning of the Yud Kei Vavke, and the Osid Lovoi, when the world will be with a Midas Hadin, with the world of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, instead of Shem Havaya Bayoimahu Yeh, instead of the Shem Havaya being Gematria 26, it will be 30. It will be Yeh, twice Yud Kei, which is Hoid Shebahoid, which is total Hal Hagodol, the Kilyoilam Chazdos, and all the Hoidus at Karnois HaMizbeach. That is a very interesting halacha in the Torah. If someone steals something with a shvur, somebody accused that you took his thing or whatever it is, and he swears, and then Eidim come and show that he lied. So he has to pay back. He pays back Keren. Keren is the principle. What if he swears and then he admits he's moida that he swore falsely? He has to pay a Keren v'choimish. He adds on Keren, the principle, and he adds on a choimish, an added 5th. And perhaps we could be meramas. Moshe Rabbeinu is the 4th. Netzach v'hoid, Moshe and Aaron. Moshe is the 4th of the Zion Royim, and Aaron is the 5th. Netzach v'hoid, Yomen Usmo Yenikas Anavim, Netzach v'hoid, Mehem Nimtsoim. Moshe is the Karnei Hoid. Keren represents the principle. But once you add in Hoidah, as Rashi says in the parsha of Choimish, Kishayakir ba'atzmai loshuv b'tshuva l'das u'lohoidos kichot l'zvados. It's not enough just to do tshuva. A person could return what he stole, he brings back the Keren. But to get into Choimish, to get into Hoid, to get into that 5th level, beyond the Keren, beyond to bring into the level of Hoid, that takes Hoidah. Al Yedei Hoidah, there's Keren v'Choimish, and that's why the word Hoid. What's Hoid? Hey, and a Dalet. Hey, connected to Dalet. Hey is Aaron, and Dalet is Moshe. When there's Hoidah, one could restore not just the Keren, but even the added Choimish. And interesting, the Gemara Matzias HaMachloik is whether you pay the Choimish milagav or milabar. Meaning whether you take a 5th from inside or from outside. When you add it all up together, it's a 5th. You take a 5th from the Keren itself. And interestingly, they're both milagav. What's lagav? Lamed Gimel Yudvav. No, that's 49. Lamed Gimel is Lag B'Omer, and Yud Vav is the 16 days that are left after Lag B'Omer. When we are Moide, Hoid, Sheba Hoid, we give Milagav, and that extends Milabar. Labar is also Leiv, is the Leiv, and Bar is the Oisius of Boyos and Rus, and the Reish, Beis, Reish is Reish Yud Shin with the Beis together, Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. So we see in the Inyan of Hoidah, when we do an Aveira is one thing. But if the Aveira brings us to a Hoidah, to humble ourselves, to be machnia ourselves, and then we realize that the Rebbeinu Shalom gives us everything, and we are embarrassed from our Maisim, and because of that, as Vayidai Maharim, we realize everything comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We could be Moida, and then we add, and we get to the level of Choimish, to the 5th level, which is Hoid. So Hoid transforms the Dova into Hoid. Our distance is our closeness. Our quiet, our Edelkeit, not like the Ummah Sa'olam where everything is loud, everything is revealed, nothing is hidden. Everything has to be announced. That's ugliness. Hoid is busha. Kol kvudo bas melech penimo. That's what kavod is. Hoid behoid is begematria kavod. That's the only kavod there is. Perhaps we could also be meramas. You know, when we count the spheres, we count 7. But actually, there's another way to count SS spheres. You have Chochma, Bina, V'das, and then Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, Netzach, Hoid, Yisoid, Malchus, and then Hoid is the 8th midah. If you count from Chochma, not the 5th, but the 8th. No, Hoid Sheba Hoid is the 8th of the 8th. It says a Shminis Sheba Shminis of Gaiva is Mutter, Chazal tell us. That is the bit of kavod we're allowed to have. When somebody is machniya himself, a Talmud Chacham, allowed to have a Shminis Sheba Shminis, that's what's going to show. That's the kavod he'll have. The Hoid Sheba Hoid that there is. And Mrs. Moiridik Psukim by David HaMelech. David HaMelech was dancing before the Oren. David Mecharker B'chol Oiz. And his wife Michal saw him and she was upset. She said, Manichpod hayoim melech Yisrael. Asher niglo hayoim, you revealed yourself le'enei amos avodav, in front of all the maidservants, ki golos niglos achad hareikim, like an empty person. And David answered, v'nekaloisi oid mizois, v'hoyisi shofol be'enoi, v'im hu amois asher omart imam ikovedo. What was the discussion? She got a terrible oynish. We know that Michal Bashal lo hoyo lo yoled ad yoim moisa because of this exchange. And I heard once an unbelievable shot. I think it's in the name of Rav Moshe Shapiro of Yerushalayim. Michal saw David HaMelech expressing himself, Rikud, dancing, with an unbelievable amount of revelation, of Gila, that's bringing out the Pnimius. And she said, he doesn't do that. Ki higolois niglois achad horeikim. When one empties himself and leaves nothing hidden, is ka'achad harekim, like an empty person. How much giluyid one has to have a chelik hasoid, a chelik hatomen. David HaMelech answered, no, you don't understand. There's much more left inside of me to be Magal. I haven't revealed everything. I'm a shofol be'eno, just put in front of the kavod HaKadosh Baruch, I'm a charka b'chol oiz. As Eden, our avodas Klal Yisrael is to be a nation of tznuim, a nation of baishonim. This is what brings us close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is our hoid. This is our beauty. This is what separates us from a world that just lives on propaganda and advertising and gili and persaimas and never ever stopping. We are the direct opposite of such isnagus. Shaul HaMelech, when he was chosen to be king, the Goyrel came to Shaul. They were looking for him, they couldn't find him. Where is he? He went and he buried himself underneath the Kalim. What was he ashamed of? Who did he hurt? He killed somebody, he stole. What did he do? He was ashamed. People were looking at him. Don't look at me. I want to be a Baishan. I want to be a Shofol Be'enoi. That is the chain of Yiddishkeit. That is the chain, that is the hoid, the beauty of Klal Yisrael. And when we reach this level, this is the gilui of Gal Einai V'Abita Niflois. We have so many more Niflois Mitorasecho. Each one of us is a chelik of the Torah, the ois of the Torah. In these days of Hoid, through working on ourselves to break the Rom, to break the Midah of Gaiva, to be Moide V'Oizev, to be Machni ourselves, to humble ourselves before the Rebbeinu Shlem. This brings out the Shevach V'Hoidah, and will bring out the Chain that each and every one has within us, the Hoid Sheba Hoid of Shom Kanisa Hoid Chavadorecha.